This is a Renegade Media Network podcast.
Obviously, you guys know I prefer organizations that flow counter to the mainstream narrative, and I've got the perfect one to tell you about. That would be Texas Scorecard. They were founded back in 2015 by a former Ron Paul congressional press secretary. They are Texas-based, Texas-focused counter-culture media organization. How cool is this? They've got podcasts, videos, live programming, a really nice print edition. They've got guest commentaries, very popular daily email newsletter that will highlight the biggest stories of the day. You can actually trust these guys without the mainstream leftist spin put on much of the news we unfortunately see these days. Their mission: disrupt statism and reconstitute self-governance. They do not want a seat at the table. They want to get rid of the table. They are pro-citizen. They will be your one-stop shop for Texas politics and news. That is for damn sure. I actually mean that because lately I wanted to know some of the stuff that was going on here. I DM'd Texas Scorecard to find out what was going on. They serve those who are tired of being lied to by the mainstream media. That would be you. That would be me as well. They do not align with any party. They work hard to hold lawmakers on both sides of the aisle accountable. Their reporting was directly responsible for taking down the corrupt Republican Speaker of the House, Dennis Bonnen. And check this out, the coolest part of this: nonprofit, no paywalls. All of the reporting is always free. You can find them on any social media channel by searching Texas Scorecard, facebook.com/Texas Scorecard, Twitter @Texas Scorecard, and then they're on YouTube as well, youtube.com/Texas Scorecard. You can find their free daily newsletter. Sign up for it over at texasminute.com. Go check out Texas Scorecard. You will not be disappointed.
You are now listening to the Counterflow Podcast, a place for dissonant voices and unapproved opinions.
You get split in fucking half, but I call the hologram graph. But I am the center inside the placenta of math. You clash with cyanide gas and die fast. Rhythmical equivalent of solids, liquid and gas. We smash your sinus with the power of Lord Titus. But I am the virus inside of the iris of Cyrus.
Here is your host and humble narrator, Buck Johnson.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back once again to the Counterflow Podcast. Good to have you with me. Good to have Jack the Perfume Nationalist here with me. Do you guys know him? If you do, I already know you're excited about this one. If you don't, stay tuned. Jack, his takes on beauty, culture, society, and really the decline of all of those things in the last couple of decades, so good. His takes on it, so good. And let's see if you can figure out maybe who's to blame for the downfall of beauty, art, culture, and the like. Well, we get into all of that here with Jack. And one of the reasons I am having him on today is not only because I find him truly unique and interesting and great to chat with, but he's going to be part of a large gathering here in Lockhart, Texas, at my 1-acre property, the Renegade University Live Texas edition, the biggest one Thaddeus Russell has put on yet. It is October 8th through 10th. As always, I tell you guys, there's a link in the episode notes for this show where you can get tickets. The VIP tickets are sold out. There are still some regular weekend package tickets available. In case you didn't know already, the event will include Thaddeus Russell, myself, Scott Horton, Hotep Jesus, Deirdre McCluskey, Cody Wilson, and of course, my guest today, Jack the Perfume Nationalist. And I also need to tell you, there's an after party Saturday the 9th here in Lockhart, Texas, in the historic downtown square. The club is called Load Off Fannies. The entertainment will be provided by none other than my friends Kyle Ruff and Robbie the Fire Bernstein. It'll be some stand-up comedy. I think you guys are going to enjoy that, as well as the whole weekend, of course, with Thaddeus Russell, myself, Scott Horton, Hotep Jesus, Cody Wilson, Deirdre McCluskey, and my guest today, one of the hosts of the Perfume Nationalist podcast. For the first time on the show, I'm so glad to get Jack, the Perfume Nationalist, on. Welcome, sir. How are you?
Thanks. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Good. Bright and early for you, as I've learned.
Bright and early for me. Yeah, I'm night person. I work at night, so this is the equivalent of, I don't know, 9 a.m. for like a normal person.
For those unaware, this is noon as we record here in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in Austin for a couple of decades, and now I'm in Lockhart nearby, about 30 minutes south. You kind of grew up in that area, which is rare. When you meet people in Austin, it's always, hey, so where are you from? You are born and raised around that area, correct?
Yeah, correct. I was born in Austin, lived there as a baby, and then I grew up in Georgetown.
Okay.
And then moved back to Austin proper in my early 20s.
Do you like it right now?
No, I mean, like, I complain about Austin so much, I like have to stop, because when I meet people, I just start into my like, doesn't it suck speech, and they just moved there and they're like, oh, this is so great compared to LA or wherever I moved from. And so I seem like a really negative person. So I'm trying to train myself out of doing that, and see the pluses. But to me, like, the last sort of vestiges of like kind of fun, or like the Austin I recognized, left for good around 2011.
Okay.
But yeah, right now, no, I hate it. The tent camps, no, just no. If your city's Democrat enough to have the tent camps now, which I guess all cities are, just seeing from day to day that rise up, it's something has to be done.
Yeah, what you said, the last vestiges of what you knew as cool Austin was gone around 09 or 10 or shortly thereafter. What's an example of what that would have been?
I mean, I used to live like, at that time I lived around Burnett Road, and it was still kind of a little kind of like dingy and cheap, and had character. Basically, like, the entirety of Austin is astroturfed, so that there isn't a trace of anything that existed prior to 2012 at all. Like, to an extent that I basically haven't experienced in any other city, because it was small to begin with.
Yes.
But yeah, it's basically, and with the COVID New World Order coming in, it's basically just gray condominiums surrounded by tin camps. And like, not even, I used to make fun of the small plates restaurants, the tapas restaurants, but now that's since rich people just order Uber Eats 3 times a day, that's not even an accurate satire.
Yeah, there was a while there for maybe 5 years ago, every time you would hear people go, oh, you got to try this new restaurant, you would find out it was small plates, and but you got to order like 8 of them, and they're each $20. And that's finally the first few. It's like, oh, that's kind of a cool, unique idea. And then after 10 or 20 of them, it's like, oh, great, another new hip restaurant that's expensive, and I leave hungry. That seemed to be common back then.
Yeah.
All right.
You broke up for a second. But yeah, I'm not picky. I'll do anything. But when you just see that everything for some reason is the picnic seating, I think most people don't like that trend. It was like going for a while, so you don't see it as much. But yeah, the picnic seating, the food that's like some sort of like middle American, like white people, like poor people food that's like ironically repurposed with some element of mockery. So it's like fried pimento cheese balls with like jalapeno immigrants on it. It's like it's just very to use an overused word, pretentious. But even like just everything is so inflated, like just diner food. Like if you want to eat like pancakes or whatever, it's always like $20 now. It's California. Like,
yeah. Well, this is your first time on the show, and before we get too deep into this, I've already got so many questions just based on what we've chatted about. Tell my audience anything they should know about you and your podcast if they're unfamiliar with you?
So I have a podcast I host with my brother called The Perfume Nationalist that we've been doing for 3 years. And we pair all kinds of media, predominantly cinema, also literature, video games, TV shows, music with historically relevant scents. And the first half of the show is discussion of a scent and the culture surrounding it. And the second half is the media. And that's basically it.
It's funny, I've listened to you on multiple platforms, including your show, and I feel like some of what you love is such a unique niche, maybe obscure to some people, but you say a lot of these terms, and it was my childhood. You talk about the show Dallas, Knots Landing, Dynasty, the perfume Poison, which was, as a child, my favorite because well, this is probably a different reason than you're familiar with, but I loved the band Poison.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a kid, I thought, well, I'm going to get that one for my mom and that one for my grandma. And they kept going, why do you keep getting us Poison? But it was the coolest. And my brother, who's younger than me, now works in Hollywood, but he, like, Knots Landing and Days of Our Lives and shows like that were on around me growing up, but I was not like hooked. I'm a kid, but for whatever reason he was, and to this day I think he still has VHS tapes of recordings of all of those shows, like every episode stored away somewhere. It's crazy. And I can still turn on Days of Our Lives now and recognize some of the same people that were there when I was a kid. It's nuts how soap opera actors are kind of in it for life. It's crazy.
It's wonderful. And then they die when it's still going, and they have a funeral on the show, and then they remember them every year at Christmas, like putting a Christmas ornament
with the ornaments, yes,
with their picture on the Christmas tree, which triggers a flashback. Yeah, it's like the best way to die.
Do you get into colognes at all, or is it just perfumes for the most part?
I use the word perfume interchangeably for any scent. I'm into anything, like, regardless of gender. But like cologne is basically a marketing term for men's perfume that arose in the 60s-ish when they started marketing like Brut and Aramis to men. But like an eau de cologne is like a light citrus cologne, like something that's existed for centuries. But I call it all perfume or fragrance. So yeah, regardless of gender.
You just named one that I still wear. My dad, I think, this must have rubbed off on me, but I am one of the few people I know that wears cologne almost daily. Several of my friends. Well, Aramis is one. Chanel, Antaeus. Have you heard of this? Of course you probably have.
Advanced tastes.
Is it?
Yeah, okay. Antaeus is amazing.
Okay.
So and then Aramis.
And then Spice Bomb, which is a little bit newer of a style.
You're free.
Dang, I keep breaking.
Nice. Yeah, I'm really impressed with the Aramis and the Antaeus. Antaeus has those amazing ads from the early 80s with like the like Hercules type model, like lifting up a giant thing of the bottle.
Okay. Like magazine ads. I can look for these on like pictures.
Yeah, and they spun it sometimes quite graphically to gay men. So there's like one that's like an ad for like a cream aftershave, and it's just a picture of the bottle like squirting this white liquid that says "for the needs of modern man," and it's quite shocking.
Excellent. My close friends that listen to this will give me a rash of shit now for quite some time. That's awesome.
No, it's cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Have you tried Egoist, the other old Chanel men's one?
No, I've not.
That had amazing ads as well, early 90s, with all these like European women in like a mansion, like opening and shutting their windows screaming Egoist. But that one's from like 1990. A masterpiece as well. The original Egoist, not Platinum Egoist.
Oh, original. Got it. I'm writing all these down. What's up, Counterflow audience? If you're listening to this show, obviously you're a person who cares about their liberty. You may even be one of these people that's kind of tired of waiting around for political change, tired of being upset by the same old from the LP, tired of all of this nonsense while you think, what should I really be doing? If you're ready to take matters into your own hands, then I want to tell you about a new community called the Nomad Network. The Nomad Network is the #1 community for liberty-minded people just like you and me who want to create freedom in their lifetime by focusing on the things that you can actually change: entrepreneurship, investment, and income mobility. The people over at the Nomad Network, Jason Stapleton, these guys are preaching how to actually make your life more free and better without having to join a political party and go through the same old motions year after year. Whether you have an existing business, looking to start one, or simply want to network with other like-minded people, the Nomad Network is the place for you. The best part is, obviously, everyone likes this, it's free to join. You hear me? Free to join. Go to www.nomadnetwork.app/buck right now to see what everyone is talking about. That is www.nomadnetwork.app/buck to get your free account today. See you there. Why is it, and maybe I shouldn't blanket this because it could just be my experience, but like I said, there's several of my close friends that not only don't wear scents, but are actively against them. They'll tease me about it, like, God, you stink, when you walk near them. Is that common, like that whole thing has kind of become, I don't know, cliche to hate on perfumes and colognes? Okay.
Yeah, that's been the dominant received wisdom, received opinion for like 20, 30 years. What happened, the larger narrative is that, okay, extremely strong perfumes were popular in the 80s. Perfume on whole was popular in the 80s. Then with the 90s came clean, office-safe, aquatic scents that were still extremely strong, like CK1, Acqua di Gio, Escape. And then concurrent with this and concurrent with smoking bans in the late 80s and early 90s, this fear of like atmospheric pollutants and people having performed allergies as like a signifier of class status started. So we're still very much submerged in the performative allergy phase. None of it's real. It's stuff that people used to tolerate with total indifference in the atmosphere. But it's predominantly a class thing, like upper middle class white people are really like inherently Puritan and want to be seen and not smelled. And it's the element of choice of choosing a scent to wear throughout the day and committing to it and other people having to smell it that offends them. Because if you just had BO, they're fine with that. They're not going to say anything to like the reeking homeless man with BO. It's the scent where they're like, something's different here.
Yes. Yeah. I've seen that exact reaction. You smell, and it's like, okay, I know you don't mean I smell bad. Yeah, like a homeless person. I see. It's a strange smugness to it.
Yeah. And like in the 80s, it was just like strong personalities were admired, strong scents were admired. It was just a completely different value system. Like no one cared if someone was offended by your perfume. That's their problem. Like, and also the whole concept of being like offended by it, they don't even particularly like don't like it. They just don't think about it. They're just programmed to think, oh, this is something different in my atmosphere. So I'm gonna reflexively say that it smells bad because it makes me kind of uncomfortable. But the average American's like, relationship with scent as an art form, I always compare it to like if you said that American cheese was the only acceptable kind of cheese and all other types of cheese were like gross, nasty, because like they don't know anything about scent. They're not educated whatsoever, so they don't think anything smells good. It's not real. It's not when people are just like dumb and don't know anything. You don't take their opinions seriously. It's like, but if they can be educated to think of scent differently, and everybody gets
Sure.
excited about it. Like when
Yeah.
I start talking about it, it like triggers like long dormant memories that they had.
Yep.
Even if they haven't, this is usually the case with women. They haven't worn perfume in 20 years. They're like, oh, I remember that. Oh, I remember Gap grass. So they just think of it as something bad. But if they have a different framework and they can start thinking about it as something other than a tool of seduction, or something like to cover up a bad smell, then they can get interested in it.
You're teaching a class right now for Thaddeus Russell at Renegade University. I believe it's called the War on Beauty or something thereabouts. I want to kind of get into those themes in general with you because I've watched now the last two courses of the versions of the course that you've taught. What kind of, for my audience that haven't seen this yet, what are you getting at with that course? Because I think you have some very, very fascinating points within it. But talk about overall broadly what you're getting at with that course.
I basically see the 2010s as the most catastrophic and ugly and culturally and aesthetically damaging decade of human existence that put an end to the 20th century for sure, all residual like good things from the 20th century, and probably set into motion the end of America and the West on whole, as we're seeing with the COVID narrative. So I just wanted to examine what happened in that decade, why everyone goes along with it, and what you can do to cure it on a personal level. I don't know if you can change things culturally. I feel like it's all out of our hands at this point, but you can retreat into a against nature style personal world of aesthetics and literature and cinema. And it's just the 2010s, all the entirety of it, all the values of it are like the exact opposite of everything good and everything I like on an objective level, not just me like exaggerating and being nostalgic for the 80s. Like everyone agrees. And the real problem here is that when people get a little red pilled about like, why do all movies suck now? Why does every TV show suck? Why is everything so ugly, didactic, scolding, bad, free of any kind of representation of human truth or joy or beauty? People aren't willing to place the blame where it lies, which is on modern woke liberalism and Democrats, because that's dangerous to go there. We go, oh, everything's just bad, just free floating, there's no reason for it. No, it's because of social justice liberalism, specifically, which is a pro-censorship, anti-history movement, which seeks to erase the past and make, a population of empty-minded subjects that can be programmed as needed with whatever they decide, constant software updates. So art is bad because of liberalism. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
But nobody wants to say that.
I know, and I love that take on it because it's one of those takes like no one says it, and I hear it, and it's like, holy shit, he's right. I think some of the irony in this is that, like I said, my brother is in the Hollywood industry, super. I say super left wing. I don't mean that in the actual legitimate socialist sense. I suppose I should say modern neoliberal progressive, if that makes sense. And he's in the film industry. So in the film industry is full of these modern neoliberal progressives, yet in your mind, they're ruining Hollywood. So I guess I want to dive into that a bit deeper because I agree with you, but it's a fascinating route that I have not gone down really. So when did this kind of, you say the 2010s, I suppose that's when this kind of started happening. And it's almost like then the left is eating their own, basically ruining the industry that they basically are prop up at this point.
I mean, it's profitable for them because it streamlines all cultural production into this like cheap, easy, formulaic thing that they just force on people, like pablum. That's the COVID world is much easier and more profitable for them than the world before. So how are we ever going to see the end of this? But in terms of how liberalism really made everything bad, it's because they view art as a tool of social engineering. First of all, they don't believe in art. The purpose of art is to explicate truths of human existence that you cannot easily say that resonate with people and reveal something about life, about human existence, about beauty, about the soul, death, whatever. So if you just view art as a tool of social engineering, where you have a list of stereotypes, by the way, are your brain gathering data from the world around you and creating a construction based on data to protect yourself. So stereotypes are rooted in truth. Just as comedy is only funny if what you're saying is true. And if you're just going through and doing the opposite of every stereotype, as you see in Hulu shows now, the product does not resonate with anyone as truthful because it's just this astroturf depiction of a utopian fantasy world that's so deeply censored. I mean, we've never, since the advent of cinema, including the Hays Code, and when movie censorship was at its heaviest, we've never been in a period of total censorship like this, or moral panic against basic human sexuality. People have never been this scared of sex, ever. Sex is not represented on screen. There's no sexualized female nudity. There's a moral panic if there is. The Jezebel pieces start coming out immediately, but people still pretend that they're living in like 1992 and there's like female nudity in movies. They still use this like ancient framework, critical framework, referring to 30 years ago, not speaking to the present moment.
Why did Zipix Toothpicks choose this podcast to start with before any of the other ones in their advertising? Well, it's because I reached out to them because I love this product. I was already using them, so why not help sell them and in turn make a little money for the Counterflow podcast? Zipix Nicotine Toothpicks. Let me tell you about them. Remember the toothpicks you would have when you were young with the cinnamon flavor? These are basically the adult version of that. They've got nicotine in each toothpick, and like I just mentioned, they actually have that cinnamon flavor, along with mocha flavor. Peppermint watermelon is very good, and I really love the Spice Island clove flavor. And so if you're trying to kick the nasty habit you may have, or the stupid looking vape habit that you may have, this is the best and cheapest alternative. Not only cheapest, but think of it this way. When you need that nicotine fix and you're on an airplane because everyone's flying again now, right? Or you're at a restaurant because now restaurants are open again. You don't have to wait until you get to your destination. If you're on vacation, you don't have to get up rudely and leave the table if you're at a dinner. They're toothpicks. You can have them anywhere. No one cares. And like I said, if it's after dinner, you can actually use the toothpick function of it as well. So go to zipixtoothpicks.com and enter promo code COUNTERFLOW for 20% off. Once again, zipixtoothpicks.com, promo code COUNTERFLOW. Let's get back to the show. Yeah, that's interesting. I heard you say that with Thaddeus, that we're living, you said something about the most puritanical moment and least, or maybe we could say the most sexless and puritanical moment in our history. And I have seen this too with younger people that are single, and the apps, of course, are out there, but a lot of them, I just was talking to one the other day, they feel like wokeism has ruined dating, basically, and that, you can't, if you are a single straight man, go up to a female at a bar or on the street or at a store, that there's this kind of angst where you're afraid that they're going to try to say that you attacked them, or that you're harassing them, or turn you in, or me too you, or these type of things. Do you see that as well?
Absolutely. I mean, it's not just dating, it's ruined everything. It's ruined friendships, it's ruined family, it's just this giant societal contaminant, a virus that replicates and like transforms itself and gets into every corner of life and ruins everything. There's nothing good about it. But yeah, the demonization of basic male sexuality is totally unprecedented. Men just have no place in society whatsoever. All the cards are stacked against them. Of course, this is, the red pill that you get when you realize that everything that you're told about the patriarchy and how everything is stacked against women is not true, because women get hired for any job now over
right.
men. As Sam Hyde said, women currently, it's like having your video game character maxed out with maxed out stats, like right when you start. And everyone thirsts for some kind of assertion or dominance or confidence right now. So there's this like massive like cultural need for daddies. We see in like Lana Del Rey, it's all about like lusting after daddies, and all the e-girls are all about daddies. That's because traditional male authority figures are not allowed to exist anymore. They're nowhere. Everyone's just like a bottom now. It's a civilization of bottoms. And that's not just if you're gay.
Right.
Everybody, straight men are bottoms because they become autogynephiles and transition now, because straight men's only acceptable sexual outlet is to become a clown charade of a woman.
Yes.
And then you can do whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can be openly horny if you will surrender your maleness and put on a wig or dye your hair pink and call yourself Amanda. But that's it.
Or become a male feminist, it seems. I see that often too with progressives, where you see these guys like white knighting for feminist causes. And it's so, from my perspective, so completely flimsy and see-through. But I suppose it's their last-ditch effort to gain female attention in a way that's acceptable in society.
And girls hate them too.
Good.
Even the most like liberal feminist girls just have this like seething disrespect for the male feminists. Everyone can see how fake that is. But if they become trans, then it's like this like Faustian bargain where they sign with the quill pen, the scroll in the air, the satanic scroll, where then you cannot be criticized by society. So it's not that the girls will sleep with them. That's not what happens. But your incel at the office who drinks like 8 bottles of Dr. Pepper every day and doesn't shower, suddenly he becomes a girl and he cannot be criticized, and he's treated with this sort of like fascination. He gets jobs. He gets hired to write for video game blogs and stuff. But girls can't like just write him off as the gross nerd guy anymore.
Right. Something that has driven me crazy, and this is probably more of me venting to you than anything, but I thought, what an episode to discuss this. There's this trend toward ugliness in advertising. Apple seems to be a giant with this trend, and I cannot stand it. But when you look at commercials, and there's no longer like pretty people, generally male or female, it's like this push, it seems like to me, by design, to like, oh, everybody can be in these commercials, even, ones that look like pink-haired trolls. Have you seen this trend as well?
Oh, yes. Advertising is nowhere now. Advertising used to be like large-scale corporate art. In the 20th, it was, probably the major art form of the 20th century after cinema.
Yes,
and
like the show Mad Men represents in a way. Yes.
and the images were beautiful. Like, they knew how to photograph a product and frame it with a fantasy so that it was desirable. So like, I watch YouTube reels of old commercials all the time, and I instantly want to buy the products. And like, even something like for the salad bar at Wendy's, like just the way that there were like good photographers then to like shoot like the image of the mushroom on a plastic fork and make it look good. Now in the 2010s, advertising surrendered any element of fantasy or aspiration and just became this gross, scolding, utilitarian operation where they do these like hollow social justice gestures. An early one was the Dove soap ads that were all like hashtag body positivity, different sizes of women, whatever. Those seem innocent now because they're all at least like normal women. Now it's like just like battle scarred, like from the trenches, like everybody's like missing an eye, missing half their head.
Yes.
In a wheelchair. It's total parody now. But the product doesn't feature at all. You don't even know what the commercials are for. It's all about these weird, unbelievable racial compositions that the casting agent does, where it's a mixed race woman with natural hair, beta coded white man, and they're like Asian kid with freckles and like Raggedy Andy orange hair.
Yes.
And it's so distracting. You don't even know. You can't even follow the plot of anything anymore because the racial makeup of everything is so like, how do we make this as random and utopian as possible? Like,
yes, I just had this discussion with a coworker. We saw a commercial almost identically to what you're saying, and he said, this is so distracting. Obviously, that kid would not be this couple's kid. Why the fuck are they doing this? Now I don't even know about the product. I can't stop looking at how annoying this family looks. It's not realistic. It's obviously what they're trying to do is push this in your face and go, look, we checked some boxes here, so we're all good now, right?
That's the point. Diversity, the thing that they call diversity, is a deliberate Brechtian theatrical alienation technique to constantly distract you from what and remind you of what is going on societally, so you can never escape. There used to be just mindless entertainment on TV that you could turn on. They've designed it now so that you can never escape, not just, subtle, messages such as this, subtle, weird, woke, end of civilization messages. It beats you over the head in everything, and it's less subtle than Birth of a Nation. It's more sinister and hostile and antagonistic than Birth of a Nation, the most racist movie ever made. And it makes it so difficult to understand what's going on. Like, if you watch like a Hulu show has up-to-date diversity requirements, since everyone is cast against the stereotype, and white men are only cast as servants or rapists, rapists, killers, or like weird beta fathers
Yep.
who like don't do anything. Like they don't assert themselves whatsoever. And like the family, this one show that I'm watching now, it's like about white girls, one of whom has a black father, one of whom has a Hispanic father. They both have white mothers. The white mothers are both, of course, bad. Of
course.
you can't even like tell who's related to who. It just narratively like a disaster because it's so far out and out of space. It's not like anyone likes it either. No one likes it.
As you describe this and kind of the negative aspects of what the men represent, it hits me. It's no wonder that so many people on the left and in Hollywood and involved in this type of programming hated Donald Trump, because he's the opposite of everything you just described. He's alpha. He probably smells like cologne, quite frankly. He brags about his wealth. He's in your face. He doesn't get scared to speak and say things he shouldn't say. It's everything that goes against what they're trying to push. And obviously that's one of the main things why they hate him.
Oh, yeah. And his aesthetics, of course, the Trump Tower 80s gauche rapper type showing off of wealth and gold and all of this. Like rich people, if you've ever been around the 1%, they absolutely do not show it off in any direct way. They don't buy anything interesting. They just travel all the time. They wear gray athleisure. They're taught at a very young age to, demonstrate visually that they have money or enjoy it in the way that like a nouveau riche person would. And Trump, with his like persona of masculine confidence and aggression and total self-certainty, and his kind of sneering, bemused sense of humor, this gets to the libtards in a way that like nothing else does. What offends them most of all is not obeying their rules of decorum. And you see this in how people react to writing styles. Like Camille Paglia, my idol's writing style is like this total like declarative, direct style. But libtards, you're always taught to do everything in this like waffling, overqualified, like, well, let's see all sides. We can't, to speak for everyone. And of course, this is masking total authoritarianism.
Yes.
It's totally fake. but just by simply declaring something to be true, that offends the libtard so much, because their whole purpose is to obscure objective reality from you.
Yes.
So that they can absorb money.
Yes. Well put.
Create jobs for themselves.
I came from a punk rock culture when I was younger, subculture. And back then, being in a subculture, we were okay with not being accepted by polite society. And then recently, the times have changed quickly. It seems like everything that was on the fringe has been shoved to the middle of society and said, no, this is normal, accept this stuff. And then it's given us like a Disney-fied version of what was a subculture. And for instance, the punk rock world for sure, but the drag stuff. My wife was a fan of RuPaul's Drag Race. And then at some point she's like, I can't stand watching this. It's been ruined by mainstream culture because now it is mainstream. This is almost a rant, not a question, but it seems like there's some kind of weird collective effort to push what was on the fringes of society to the middle and make it normal, which now makes me just want to be normal. Sometimes I look and think, damn, I wish I didn't have tattoos. I would look like an outcast at this point if I didn't. Do you think this was a concerted effort to do this? It's almost like they want one big homogenous blob at this point.
They do want a one big homogenous blob at the bottom delivering them Uber Eats. But this is just what liberals do. Their whole impetus with social justice is to create eternal fundraising opportunities for themselves. So they have to create new minorities to raise money for and create high-paying jobs for themselves, or they cease to exist. This is why whenever they achieve, some massive victory like gay marriage, which was the plot line with them for 15 years before that, the second it passed, they didn't celebrate. They said, we have so much more left to do. And they invented transgenderism and deployed that immediately as the new minority. And so they have to create this illusion that they're like the eternal underdog.
Yes.
Even though they
run everything.
Literally have authoritarian control of every aspect of society from the top down right now. And even when Republicans are in power, they have control of the entire media.
Yep.
So this is just to create an illusion for like people who don't think about politics much or don't have the wherewithal to like understand what's going on, that things like Antifa and like being like pro-COVID, pro-mask and all of this are associated with their rich legacy of like countercultural production and protest against an imaginary, villainous, white Republican, middle American, vulgar enemy who like goes to Applebee's unironically.
Yeah.
And it works. Everyone's still like Gen Xers are just doomed because they cannot understand that the polarity hasn't shifted, because it's always been like this, but it's more like out in the open than ever before, that liberals, the left, is authoritarian.
Yes.
It's fascism. Everything that they thought they knew was false.
Yep.
There is no like evangelical threat that they made up in the 90s,
Let me tell you guys about your one-stop shop for all things CBD related, and that would be PalomaVerdeCBD.com. That is PalomaVerdeCBD.com, where naturally they are a sponsor of this show. So there's a promo code, which is BUCK, B-U-C-K. If you use that over at PalomaVerdeCBD.com, you will get 25% off of your order. Everything over $75, that is. So that's the stuff I got to tell you up top. Now, I want to tell you, other than supporting this show, which I'm assuming you'd like to do, I'll tell you some other reasons why you should shop there. For one, they opened a brick and mortar store right before the government lockdowns happened, which basically wiped that part out. So they're online only now. So you got to feel for anyone that was a victim of government overreach, like the lockdowns, and that's what these guys were. But they're a really wonderful couple. They're very good people, very like-minded into this kind of same stuff, the weird stuff that we're all into. I can tell you that Carlos and Vanessa out of San Antonio are truly good people, and they're really hard workers. They put a lot into this business. There's a lot of personal touches, so that ought to entice you guys as well. I can tell you about some of the products. They've got the mint CBD tinctures. They've got all the CBD stuff. If you're thinking, do they have this? Yeah, they probably do. They've got CBD soft gels, CBD gummies. They've got the tinctures. Like I said, they've got salve stick. There's a sleep bundle to help you sleep with several things in that. They've got salve, and I bragged about this a lot, but I genuinely mean it. The CBD Cool Menthol Sports Cream is the best sports cream I've ever used. And I am not saying that just because they're sponsors. I actually mean it. Also, the pet treats, the dog chews. Guess who loves the dog chews? That would be Lux, my French bulldog. If you know anything about the French bulldog breed, once they're about 10 years old, they kind of limp around a little bit slower than they used to. Well, that was my dog, basically, up until I started giving him these dog chews. and putting the pet CBD tinctures on his food every morning. And now he thinks he's like 2 years old again, which would be 14 years old, I guess, in dog years. But yeah, so he thinks he's a teenager. Anyway, I love that he loves that. And I love that these guys are sponsors. Like I said, they're great people. They want to help support this show, as do you. So, PalomaVerdeCBD.com, promo code BUCK, B-U-C-K at checkout, get you 25% off of everything over $75. Please give them a visit. It helps them, it helps me, and it helps my dog. What more could you ask for? Let's get back to the show. I almost thought that it was becoming too apparent how authoritarian the left has been getting with the COVID stuff. But then I just the other day this screenshot of a nice new attempt to show that no, the left is still they're rebels still, and it was something like a surrounding the profile picture of someone. I question authority. I still question authority, but I'm vaccinated, and it was like the most disgusting effort to say like, oh no, I'm not into big pharma, but I am in for your safety.
Oh, it's just revolting, just disgusting, these people. Everyone must realize that there is a good side and a bad side. This is a mythological fight we are in right now, and there is no room for your gray area, both sides. I don't believe in political parties. Everybody tries to exempt themselves from danger by pretending that there is an equal threat all around. No, there isn't. Liberals are bad. We are living in the time of Nazis now, but worse. If you're compliant with current modern day liberalism, you're compliant with Nazism, with fascism. You're an idiot. You're not. Just to save your face, your little friends, your stupid little social circle that will dump you anyway when you eventually commit some blunder against, their ever-changing liberal beliefs. People have to start thinking in larger mythological terms.
Yes.
This both sidesism is just like toxic. And, the right wing does it all, like the mealy mouth alt-right guys that were started hating Trump early on and supported all these deliberate Fed psyops like Andrew Yang that were sent to sow dissent in the party. Those guys are just as lost as the liberals, because they do the both sides. They do actually Biden is based.
Yes.
Disgusting.
You mentioned Camille Paglia a while ago is one of your heroes, I suppose. I wanted to ask you about what she said about a dying civilization, because I always thought that was one of her most prescient writings. Can you talk about that?
So Paglia's major thesis in Sexual Personae, which she started as her dissertation in the early 70s, is that dying civilizations see a flourishing of androgyny, transgenderism, gender experimentation, and sadomasochism. And we're seeing all of this right now so explicitly because the sadomasochism, like all of COVID, is sadomasochistic theater and ritual. And people like it because since they've demonized the male authority and the patriarchy and any kind of sense of objective truth or a hierarchy of value for so long, they like having rigid rules to obey now. And of course, liberals, the whole thing with social justice is creating an alternate religion for themselves because they have abandoned Christianity. And white liberals do everything out of this sense of original sin for American slavery, which they see as unique in which it is not in the history of crimes against humanity. So they're eternally atoning for that. And COVID is just one more way to atone. So yeah, and then the transgenderism, obviously, people have a hard time understanding what's going on with this, understandably, because they obscure the truth of it. It's that the current 2010s transgender ideology is a political propaganda operation, and it's not a gender or like sexuality liberation movement, like like actual like genetic gay liberation, of like an inborn desire. It's something that spreads like a virus because it has no rules. It's a word virus that spreads to anyone. It's just all about this postmodern pretending that there is no objective reality in order to psyop the population out of of expressing any kind of like objective biological truth. And they could not have done COVID without this many years of transgender ideology making people afraid to express objective truth publicly for fear of having their bank accounts canceled and being made a pariah. So the transgender stuff is also they're acting as free police for the regime, for the Democrats, because an inherent part of their culture of going on the computer is to get on and perform ritualistic cancellations, which I see as an explicitly sexual thing, because all like normal sex drives are like forbidden, all normal outlets for human sexuality. So the urge to cancel is this very like Puritan, like Salem witch trial, like libidinous activity. And they all do it for free. And no one will criticize them. No one will say it because everyone knows what happens. They come after you. So that's what's going on there. So yeah, Paglia is right about everything, and especially about the proliferation of androgyny and sadomasochism in dying civilizations.
Would there be, or is there, I should say, pushback within, if you say these things, what you're saying within the gay community, would you get pushback, or do they agree with you?
Well, regular gay men like myself are no longer part of the LGBTQ plus acronym. Straight up, gay men are explicitly demonized. You can say anything as homophobic as you want if they're some kind of ideological dissident. I see it all the time. They can call you a faggot. They can call you whatever. They can call you a disease carrier. Liberals do this all the time, all day.
Wow.
And that's because men are a problem. Like the whole weakening of society right now, in order to do that, they have to specifically make men impotent, powerless, humiliated, oust them from positions of power, because men, especially when bonding with each other, have like tremendous intellectual ability and are more likely to see what's going on. And homosexuals, of course, do not have a history of not obeying, society's rules and, speaking out very like acidically and humorously and satirically against all of this stuff. So you saw immediately after gay marriage passed the Salon and Jezebel articles about how cis white gay men, their misogyny needs to be rooted out, their transphobia needs to be rooted out. So we're possibly more hated than straight cis white men right now. You have to like literally become physically female or spiritually female in order to be accepted by the LGBTQ plus monolith. We're nowhere right now. And then right wingers hate us as well because it's a timeless, emotionally appealing thing to blame the degeneracy of society on gay men and the sensational idea of anal sex. Like you can get any kind of emotional reaction from an audience, especially a straight audience, by talking about this. And so this stuff that is largely done by liberal women, like, Drag Queen Story Hour, all the current like liberal version of drag,
Yes.
This is all women pushing this. But straight people don't want to blame women for anything. They like thinking of women as like innocent creatures that were just, led astray. But all of the liberalism stuff, they have been integral to it more than,
Yeah.
probably more than gay men.
Yes. Yeah.
But that doesn't have the emotional appeal and the simplicity of saying, gays are out there like butt fucking. So that's from there, society goes downhill, slippery slope.
Yeah. Yeah. It's upper class, upper middle class white women that have ruined a lot of stuff in this society. There's no doubt about that. Leftist ones, of course, but that seems to be their main thing. And as another thing I was thinking, as you're saying, well, once gay marriage got passed, then these articles start coming out vilifying gay men. And it's almost like progressivism is this virus that just looks for a new host. They conquer that one, boom, on to the next host. And so gay marriage achieved, boom, onto now transgenderism and whatnot. And then if that gets accepted widely in society, it just keeps looking for a new host.
It's communism. That's what communism is. People should read The Fountainhead. It depicts it perfectly. It depicts it was written in the 30s and is not appreciated at all for its spot-on satire of how leftist media operates. Because the whole thing is about media figures going after the individual that doesn't obey them. And the whole like operation of their like creepy, low-effort communist artists, their celebration of like disease and deformity, that's all in there. But yeah, I like naming a spade and calling it communism lately, because the dirtbag leftists are getting too confident with their nonsense.
Is there anything to be optimistic about in the short term or long term, really? Is there still beauty to be found, still goodness to be found, hope to be found?
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially on an individual level, I think unplugging is essential. Not consuming news media is essential. This residual idea that you're somehow a more informed and with it person for consuming news media is not true.
Yes.
You'll get enough of it. The plot lines will trickle down to you anyway. You don't need to spend your time learning the latest thing that AOC did in detail. Read fiction instead. There's this received negativity about fiction. The people for the last 10 years go, I don't read fiction. And you should all read fiction. You'll learn a lot more about truth, beauty, humanity from a popular fiction novel written prior to the 2000s than you will this like alienating theory stuff. In regards to COVID, the most imminent threat to civilization right now, COVID authoritarianism, I should say, with them bringing it back for this sequel, fortunately, a lot of the normies are realizing that things are not what they seemed. Like the people who were religiously adamant that there's this narrative that we could have all solved COVID if it hadn't been for MAGA white Trump voters, which they received from the media. They have realized that no, COVID is probably just this thing that Democrats are going to push forever. And they don't quite, it's too far out there for them to realize that COVID is an entirely cynical power grab, consolidation of power and money, operation, and total reorganization of society. But they sense that something's the matter and they disobey the mask stuff, and they don't seem to believe as much in the masks. Most of COVID right now seems to be taking place online.
Yeah.
So there's hope there. Also, a few cultural productions that are not focus grouped utopian propaganda have been successful lately. Mike White's The White Lotus is one of them. Became a kind of phenomenon and is a very like reactionary product that gives me hope. But mainly people should buy physical media if it matters to them, unplug from the news, read fiction, and above all, just oppose all censorship measures. Like the problem right now is censorship, and that's how I, was effectively foisted onto the right like 12 years ago, is because I opposed censorship and I saw what was happening. I saw everyone my age suddenly repeating in this like creepy manner that actually it's good that things be concealed from view and that free speech be demonized because some imaginary minorities will be harmed by the concept of free speech. And then right-wingers often become just as censorious as liberals in the opposite direction when they get red-pilled, which is like so bad. They become these like humorless, like draconian, just like awful, like trad people. It's like, no, just read Sexual Personae, read Paglia. It's all there. You be realistic, be normal.
I like that. Yeah, be normal. Yeah, the younger me would have never said that. Now the older me, definitely says this. Thaddeus told me when we have the event here in Lockhart, the Renegade Live, October 8th through 10th, I think he said something about there's actually going to be perfume here. Are you? What does that involve?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna do some kind of like perfume demonstration.
Yes.
So yeah, there will be some perfume there. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. And for those in the audience listening to this that actually do care about cologne or perfume, drop just a couple recommendations off the top of your head.
Clinique Aromatics Elixir, Terry Mugler Angel, Corone Yadigan, Santa Maria Novella Patchouli, Chanel No. 5.
I like it. You keep looking around. You've got them sitting right there.
I'm looking at my shelf over there.
I love that. Awesome. Yeah. And then plug away about your show, where they can find it, your social media presence, any of it.
We're on Patreon, Patreon/Perfume Nationalist. We do alternating free and paywalled episodes, but it should all be seen as chapters in a larger narrative. But like 80% of it's free. There's a free feed on iTunes and Libsyn, so you can dip in and see what it's all about.
Awesome. Jack, the Perfume Nationalist, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks. It was a pleasure.
Yes, sir. I told you Jack had such a good and unique take on where things were and where things are. I hope you guys enjoyed that chat, and I hope to see many of you at the event here in Lockhart, Texas, the Renegade University Live, where, as you heard, I think there's going to be some cologne and perfume sampling of sorts. But yeah, that'll be really interesting. So let's see. The housekeeping. I'm going to read a review that someone left me on iTunes. I am going to start to do this. As you guys know, I've told you, I've read you a few good ones. It's time to read you a bad one. I hope you're as amused by this as I was. This is from Blue Meanie Face, a review on iTunes about this show. Incendiary, loony trash. If you are into hating things for imaginary reasons, this is your show. People like this need to be stopped, the same way someone setting fires needs to be stopped. Freedom isn't built for pricks to ruin life for everybody. This fat-headed moron is not your friend. Lose him and every idiot like him, and you will be better off. How about that? If you are one of the idiots like me, I should tell you about our YouTube page, please go subscribe. We're almost to the threshold where I can get monetized through YouTube. Imagine that. So go subscribe. All of these videos, like I tell you every week now, all of these episodes will be on the YouTube page, as well as some exclusive content to YouTube, some live streams that I will be doing and that I have done. They're already up there. They stay on YouTube. If you can't catch them live, they're always going to be up there, but they will not be a part of the podcast feed on your regular podcatcher like you listen to this show. So just wanted you to know that. The website, counterflowpodcast.com's got all my links. We got the Counterflow t-shirts, everything you need around this website. And again, if you're an idiot like me, then you don't want to lose me, and you think you're better off with me, go check out the website, subscribe on iTunes, leave us a rating and a review, and I will probably be reading your review here soon. Thank you guys so much for being here. Oh, I got to tell you guys really quick about the event I will be at in Mexico. It is put on by Johnny Profita from Peddling Fiction Podcast. It's in Sayulita, Mexico, near Puerto Vallarta. The Sayulita Super Spreader, December 10th through December 12th. Special guests, Michael Rechtenwald, Buck Johnson, Robbie the Fire Bernstein, Martha Bueno, and Clint Russell from the Liberty Lockdown podcast. There's a link in the episode notes for this show, of course, to buy your tickets. Let's go party in Mexico, why not? And that's finally all the housekeeping I got. Thank you guys so much for being here. I will see you next week. Have a good one.
You get split in fucking half, but I call the hologram brass. But I am the center inside the placenta of math. You clash with cyanide gas and die fast. Rhythmical equivalent of solids, liquid and gas. We smash your sinus with the power of Lord Titus. But I am the virus inside of the iris of Cyrus.
Like the sound of the Counterflow podcast? Our audio production is provided by Podsworth Media. Check them out at podsworth.com.
This has been the Counterflow Podcast, a part of the Renegade Media Network.